audience of investors, founders, Mr. Manoj Kohli doesn't really need any introduction, and I'm giving you an introduction. I'm not reading it from his Wikipedia page. I went to a business school called MDI. I'm from the first batch, Mr. Kohli. I got lucky when I got in when the quality control was really bad. That's what happens in first batches. And lo and behold, they also made me the chairman of alumni 15 years back. And 2 years back, I became the first alumnus from MDI to be on the board of governors of my alma mater. So I've had a long journey. From the time of MDI, I've been hearing your name, your work at Airtel and scaling up the company. I know you were at Escotel. You even hired some of my batchmates, Yatin Pava. I don't know if you remember him. I don't know. This was 25 years back. So I've known you from at least 25 years. You were at Escotel about 26, 27 years back, roughly. So from that time, I've known about you. And even in 25 years, I've never had the good chance of meeting you, but I hope I will knock on your doors and come by and meet you. And then what you did at Airtel, built a company along with the founders like an entrepreneur, took it public, then went to a new market, got out of his comfort zone, went to Africa, did the JV with the large player there, listed the company, then joined SoftBank. He joined SoftBank in the first, you were looking at the solar sector investments, if I'm not wrong, because I'm not reading it out of anything. I just know about you, and we have at least 50 common friends. And then for the last few years, he's the country manager for SoftBank and SoftBank's investments in India, which is a very large role. I don't have to introduce what SoftBank is to this audience. So welcome, Mr. Kohli. I'll stand here on the dais and I'll ask you my first question. First of all, we are doing this in the backdrop of the pandemic. What has changed in entrepreneurship and in terms of how businesses are done in the last 18 months? I'd like you to set up a context. And before Mr. Kohli starts, please give him a big round of applause. He can hear that and he can bring more energy into the room.
Thank you, Anurag. I am delighted to be with you. First and foremost, I congratulate you of initiating this Young Leader Awards, because it is so important for us to recognize and reward our young leaders, because they are the future of this country. And I'm so happy that you're doing it today, and I'm sure you'll institutionalize it over long term. Secondly, I fully agree with your earlier speech. You said a couple of very important things like sustainability, empathy. And I believe in this new world, both sustainability and empathy from leadership is most important. Now, coming to your specific question, I believe that this is the moment entrepreneurs have been waiting for. I am, Anurag, older than you, so obviously when I entered the industry when I was 20, and I'm now in my...
This was a DCM Shriram Limited, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
wrong.
so now I'm in my 43rd year of industrial experience. And so when I entered, opportunities were limited to IAS, doctor, some engineering, and maybe some private companies like Unilever, DCM, and some others. But today, I will say the professional opportunities are at the peak. But more importantly, Anurag, the transformation which has happened in the last 5-7 years is that entrepreneurial opportunities are going out tremendously. Youth, the millennial generation, average age 27, very open, very purpose-driven, very hungry, are actually now looking to become job creators rather than trying to apply for a job. And I think that's a big change which India as our country required, because we need much more job creators. Now, what has triggered this? There are 2-3 very important factors which have triggered this shift from professional growth to entrepreneurship growth. And I'm very happy, Anurag, you said you are yourself an entrepreneur, and that's why you can feel for them. You want to encourage them. One, and most importantly, I think the technology is today available to be massified. Earlier, If you remember, technology used to be for few people, maybe at the top of the pyramid. Now technologies are going right to the bottom of the pyramid. And my teacher in Michigan, C.K. Prahlad, used to always say, fortune lies at the bottom of the pyramid.
Absolutely.
And I think you can reach to bottom of the pyramid only through technology. I remember in Airtel going to lakhs of villages. We covered more than 5 lakh, 5.5 lakh villages by 3G and now 4G. Village may not have a road or a railway station or some other infrastructure, but it will have 2G, 3G, and now 4G connectivity. And I think that is the biggest technology-based connectivity which every rural Indian deserves to have. So that's technology is number one. And every entrepreneur, every youngster of 20 years of age, 25 years of age has access to technology. The second area is very important of capital availability. I think for the first time, private equity, venture funds are available to all young entrepreneurs. If they have a good idea, if they have a good business model, if they have a good product or service for the masses, he or she will be able to convert that idea into reality through capital support. And I think we are very blessed. This generation is very blessed to be at this stage in their careers. They've started just now, and both technology and capital are supporting. The third aspect is that Government of India also has realized that the future transformation, the next industrial transformation, is coming from young entrepreneurs. Young entrepreneurs, especially from small and medium towns. And Anurag, if you do a research of small and medium towns of India, a majority of the entrepreneurs are coming from there because they have fantastic middle class values like you and me have. They are hungry to to succeed. They are hungry to win. They are very hardworking. They're very honest. And finally, they are humble.
Thank you, Mr. Kohli. I mean, I grew up in a very middle-class family, and I never had a paucity of anything. I luckily have the blessings of both my parents. My father in a couple of days would be 82, and my mother is in her 81st year. And I grew up very close to MDI. My father was a professor at the government college in Gurgaon, and my mother was at the SCRT. Both are academicians. My father decided to study at BITS Pilani in early 60s on a full scholarship. My grandfather was a farmer. He came from Pakistan. And he went to BITS Pilani on a full scholarship, but he chose to be a professor. And he's been happy in life, contented and happy. At the end of the day, whatever you do, you're doing it because you want to make an impact and you're happy. I want to come to those middle class values. I think can you build on, you meet so many founders, both in your capacity as the head of SoftBank in India, with your global exposure, also as someone over the years who did make a lot of wealth as a professional, because you were really in top-notch jobs. And possibly you have done a bit of angel investing. I'm not aware of any specific, I'm just saying you may have done or advised. I want to ask you, when you look at the success of founders and you meet a lot of young founders, what are the match with the middle class values? You talked about humility. That's of course there. You talked of hard work. You alluded to that. What are the other middle class values that you see in founders when you interact with them? And I would also like an input from you. What are the values that you see that get you worried?
Okay, no, thank you, Anurag. That's a very good question. Let me tell you the middle class value as I see, because I have come up the same route, as 4 C's. 4 C's. First, let me start with hard work. 4 H. I was talking about. Hard work is something which your parents, my parents, and all these parents have taught us, that there's no shortcut. And hard work includes smart work. It doesn't say that it's only physical hard work. It's also intellectual. Intellectually, you need to be working hard. analyzing the situation, etc. The second is honesty. And our parents always taught us that be honest. If you try to be dishonest sometimes, it will not last long. You will fall. So better be honest and it'll last for life.
Absolutely.
Third H is humility. Humility is respect. Respect everyone from top to bottom. You may meet the junior-most person in an office or in society. Respect should be equally given to everyone. And that is the humility which is taught to us. And last but not the least, hunger. Hunger to win, trying your best, even if you fail once, twice, don't worry. You should have hunger to win, go back again, try again. And I think these are 4 H's, which are very important, which I think every mother and father teach. For example, one of the things my mother taught me was frugality, through saying that when you are hungry, you can take food 2 times, twice, thrice, even 5 times. But when the plate comes back after you finish eating to the kitchen, it should be clean, 0 wastage. And that is a mantra she taught me, and she taught my sisters also. And I'm sure every mother in Indian middle class teaches this. The same way I ran Airtel. I ran the business on frugality, that we should have the lowest cost in the world.
I must tell you that, I know Airtel, you no longer work with Airtel, but you built that brand, that business. And I can tell you that Airtel is so good in deaf call now. I bought a Jio connection 2 years back because Airtel wasn't that good in, at least where I live. I got a booster installed. And now I can say I really don't need my Jio number. I'm not even carrying it today. Because Airtel in the last 18 months, I think telcos have become better. That's my view. Most, they've got a lease of life, but we'll talk about it another day. You're talking about the areas that are, I requested you tell us areas that you see in founders, the attributes that make you uncomfortable. I'll tell you mine. I meet lots of young people. Go ahead, Mr. Kohli. I can hear you.
Yeah. So no, good question. As I said, there are many entrepreneurs coming from small towns. Like, let me give example of Ritesh coming from a small village in Orissa.
Absolutely.
Bhavish coming from Ludhiana, and many others coming from small and medium towns. Somebody from Meerut, somebody from Faridabad, somebody from all kind of
Aligarh, Vijay
towns.
from Aligarh.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have huge respect for them. The only thing, frankly, they are very passionate. First. Secondly, their understanding of technology is very good. Third, their product knowledge is fantastic. Fourth, their vision and their passion to grow is fantastic. The only thing which they really have not got the experience is of scale up. They want to scale up 10x, 20x, and that is where colleagues like me support them, because they haven't gone through that experience. They are young, very young, and they need to understand how to scale up, what to do during scale up, what not to do during scale up, and they will then scale up not only nationally but also internationally. So I think in terms of new learning, that is the only new learning they need to imbibe. Otherwise, I think entrepreneurs are very high quality now. And I'm so proud because I feel that globally, I go to all over the world. There are very few countries in the world who have such knowledgeable, educated, hungry, young entrepreneur coming up from small to medium towns.
Absolutely. Now, let me give you my 2 areas where I see discomfort sometimes. I mean, I can say I believe in the power of reverse mentoring. You can learn from young people clearly about technology, about the bets they take. And in my job, the biggest reward is to meet such people. I can tell you 2 things that make me uncomfortable. One is they're very transactional a lot of times. And I think sometimes they're more confident than they should be. They should be a little worried about some of the things they say. I think talking big has become cheap, if I may use that word. They talk big because they've seen. their balance sheets, their businesses may not even be close to that. And I'm not saying they can't achieve that, but sometimes I feel there is a disconnect between their reality and what they want to be. And that can be with an entrepreneur of any age, size you. But one definitely is they're very transactional. They don't understand the power of relationships and how they come into play, whether it's a referral, whatever it is. Now let me move on. Our topic was decoding the Indian unicorn. Now everyone wants to be a unicorn. Entrepreneurs do look at their valuation. They do look at their stock price. You know that, right? By experience. Now there is a criticism that the entrepreneurs are too focused on valuations rather than creating value. And I will not go into the valuations beyond the point. By the way, I've had the good pleasure of meeting Bhavish 5-6 years back. I haven't met him. Ritesh is the youngest board member on my alma mater MDI's board. He's also a friend. And again, I know he's trying to rebuild his company to another level. So good luck to him. But I want to ask you, is this fascination of Indian startups with valuations and entrepreneurs rather than creating value, what is your commentary on that?
So Anurag, you have a point. I coach so many entrepreneurs, I support so many entrepreneurs, and I believe that majority, and maybe 80 to 90%, want to create value, want to go for long-term success, want to be sustainable in terms of success, rather than, as you said, transactional or short-term, etc., etc. Maybe in every community there could be a small percentage who want to be transactional, who want to be, who are very attracted by the valuations, etc., etc., and not creating the value inside the company in terms of bigger business and bigger profits. So I feel that majority of them want to build a long-term value. Majority of them are very sensitive to every parameter of good performance, and that is why I'm on the board of National Startup Mission by Government of India. And one of the things we are doing there is to start mentorship of all startups. And we are about to complete that project in the next 2-3 months, because we feel, and government feels also, that mentorship by experienced managers, experienced professionals or entrepreneurs is important for young entrepreneurs to basically help them scale up, to help them understand how value creation has to be done on a sustainable long-term basis. Market value, yes, is important because you list yourself and that listing reflects some degree of your success, but that is not enough. The real success and real value creation is if your business becomes larger and larger, not only domestically, but many brands, startup brands are going globally. If you see recent Olympics or cricket matches, majority of the ads are coming from startup brands. And I think that's a reflection that how startups are not only limiting themselves to domestic markets, but also going internationally. And I feel that mentorship will help some of these youngsters to really focus much more on the value creation, genuine intrinsic value creation, and not get digressed by external values.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you, there are founders listening to you. Give us a sense of what has changed about investing. See, fundamental laws of anything don't change, right? The basics of investing. But the marketplace, technology, ideas, innovation are moving at a such fast pace. What is your advice to founders who are in this room and who are watching you on the bwdisrupt.com in terms of raising capital? A lot of them aspire to raise capital. Some have raised capital from marquee names. What's your advice to them in terms of raising capital in the current environment?
So Anurag, firstly, the liquidity of such capital, venture capital across the world is very high. Second is that the Indian economy is turning the corner. Government of India has initiated fantastic reforms in the last 18 months to help the economy to not only recover, but also become much bigger. And it is expected that in the next decade, the economy will grow at a sustainable pace of 7 to 8%, if not more. So therefore, more and more liquidity is coming India's way. Now, I speak with, I interact with many global investors, and basically there are 4 or 5 major parameters of how they evaluate a new investment. Number one, the product idea or the service idea has to be very, very acceptable to the consumers. It should be to make consumers' life easy and convenient. If that idea is like that, that idea needs to be supported. So that's number one. Second is the business model. The business model of how that product or service reaches the hands of customer, and how conveniently customer can utilize that product or service is important. But the business model has to be a profitable business model, which means on a per unit basis, there has to be a margin, healthy margin. Yes, at a small level, businesses may not have very high margin, but as the businesses grow, scale up, the economies of scale will pick up and the margins will also improve. So business model has to be profitable. Third thing, which is also very important, Anurag, is the importance of brand. That are you building a strong brand? Because Indian consumer, as you know, is brand conscious. He or she will like to go for a brand which is admired, which is close to his or her heart. So building brand is a very important parameter. And building an admired brand, and you will appreciate that Airtel, starting from ground zero, we had built it to #1 brand in the country across categories. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of good work. And even now, Airtel team is working so hard. So same way, every startup has to do a very good brand, because brand will attract more and more customers and will retain more and more customers. The fourth aspect, which is also very important, is the leadership team, the professional team, professional culture, professional talent, which the entrepreneur is building up. Because if he or she doesn't build up a professional team which is high quality, which is high performance, then scaling up the company will become difficult. So it's very important to build a high quality professional team. And finally, the fifth attribute, Anurag, is the values, core values and ethics of the entrepreneur himself. Because many international investors are betting large funds on such entrepreneurs. And if their values are good, ethics are good, and we would like all our entrepreneurs in whom we invest to be very, very ethical. So in short, these are the 5 major parameters, Anurag, which generally global investors look at.
Okay, thank you so much for contextualizing it. Some of it are old, but I would agree on the brand building bit. I can say entrepreneurs, I remember Nikhil Kamath and Nitin Kamath participating in our 40 under 40, and I was the jury. And I asked them, so you guys have done well. Why do you want to participate in a Business World event? No, the winning in Business World event is a lot credible, and it will help us build our brand better. Now, these are guys who are already doing well 6 months back. This is almost 6 months, man. It could be 5, it could be 7. So clearly building brand through advertising, through word of mouth, through social media, through actual product experience is very important. Now, let me also say, I've been thinking about what you've been saying. Like in the Indian cricket, Dhoni came from Ranchi. The superstars are not necessarily coming from Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. Yes, you rightly said they're coming from middle-class cities, small towns. I want to ask you 2 last questions before I ask you a personal question. One is, I was talking to a very large investor. You possibly know him. He made his money 30 years back, became a billionaire, and now invests in companies. He is a Gujarati who's between Silicon Valley, India, and Singapore. And I was sitting with him about 3 years back, talking to him. And we talked to him, and he said to me, and I reflected over it, that Indian entrepreneurs want to be rich. They don't want to be wealthy. And then we debated what is being rich means and what is being wealthy means. And I gave him an example that Indian entrepreneurs, if someone raises 300 crores of, and let's say 150 is primary and 150 is secondary, if at all that can happen in some businesses. They go ahead and, they sell equity short, they'll buy a big house, they'll buy a big car, they'll become an angel investor. Whereas from my experience in Silicon Valley and my friends in the US, in Europe, they'd still go by train, keep all the money in the bank, invest it in the business, and live a frugal life. Nothing changes. So what do you have to say to that? And again, I don't want to generalize, but by and large, I saw that phenomena over the last 10 years, being an angel investor, where I got some exits.
Yeah, so building long-term wealth, not only for yourself, but also for community, is the goal, is the real goal. And if you bring about major growth, major employment, especially in small towns and villages where you come from as an entrepreneur, I think that is the biggest success factor you can achieve. Now, you're right. There are few entrepreneurs who may not be doing it, who may be looking at short-term success, but that applies to any human situation. There will be some percentage, small percentage, you look at short-term, but I will say that large percentage, large majority are looking at long-term success because, the journey is starting when they are 25 or not even 25. And they have 40, 50 years to go. If they do a short-term success, what will they do whole life? How will they continue contributing to themselves and to the society? So let me tell you my own personal experience of interacting with so many of them, maybe 30, 40 of them now in the last 2-3 years, is that they have an eye on long-term success. They have an eye on long-term contribution, not only in domestic market, but global markets.
Fantastic. Now we know the sectors that are doing well: health tech, well-being tech, insurance tech, agri tech. Today we're talking on a morning which is Guru Purnima, and mentorship is about Guru. And the Prime Minister has repealed the farm laws, shows that the government is pragmatic and willing to change its point of view, even if it takes them a while to do that. Now, agri-tech is a big area. Give us a sense of course, blockchain is changing the way all businesses are working. It's a big opportunity. Give us a sense of what is the view on some of the sectors that are yet not visible as great sectors. I mean, can you give us a sense of 1 or 2 sectors that you really are bullish on?
Anurag, the technology acceptance, the technology will massify every brick and mortar sector is a very important acceptance for all of us, whether it is existing industry colleagues or new young entrepreneurs. Any company, old or new, which accepts that through technology, we will be able to massify to a much bigger community, much bigger customer base, is very important. And I can tell you that in the coming decade, the impact of technology will be more than impact of technology in the last 100 years. Technology will overtake lives from the time we wake up to the time we sleep. It will really change our lives, transform our lives. Same applies to every sector, every industry. I believe that sectors which are very close to our community, which are important for the nation, like education, like healthcare, are most important because they are going right to the last man in the most isolated village of India. And I think it is our duty, it is our responsibility.
Democratizing education.
Absolutely. It's our duty of every Indian and every successful Indian, especially, not only government, that we take education, healthcare to the last Indian sitting in the most isolated village of India. Now, if that happens, like power, now power, if you see, power has been shortage for a long time, but now power is reaching to every village of the country. And this will transform India. So similarly, if through technology, every brick and mortar sector, let me give you an example of one of our portfolio companies, Lenskart. It's an eye care company. It really it has small showrooms in all small towns and villages, many small towns, physical also, small, where a technician sits, where he or she tests the eyes, gives you a new number, and then you look at the app, and then you are recommended few frames which suit your face, and and uh, and and they're all affordable frames. They are not expensive. 500,000 rupees each. You can buy one. You can buy two, depending on what you need. And as soon as you make the payment, within about 72 hours or so, you get delivery with courier at home. Now, I'm just saying, Anurag, isn't it a fantastic technology? Isn't it a fantastic service to all the Indians living in small towns and villages? So every brick and mortar industry has to go to the root of the society. As I said earlier, the bottom of the pyramid. And then that will be called a great success. So on one hand, you go global, you take Indian brand global. Other hand, you go to the last village of the country. I think these success factors are so important for us in the next 10 years.
Thank you so much. My last two quick questions, one personal, one professional. My last professional question is, of course, this government is a very responsive, very proactive, very aggressive, very enabling government, and it's trying to do whatever it can right at the Prime Minister level. Startup India was started in 2016. And look at a lot of things have happened in the last 5 years. Not all credit to the government, a lot of credit to the enabling ecosystem of investors, mentors, most importantly, founders, but the government has done its bit. Having said that, what are the few things that can be done by the government or policy makers, especially the bureaucrats, to be able to grow the startup ecosystem even further? For example, how do you bring down the cost of capital in India, right? How do you do funding without collaterals? It still has a long way to go. It has improved. And I'm talking of early stage funding. Of course, there today an ecosystem of at least 10,000 to 12,000 very active angel investors. So what do you think the government and the policymakers can do to be able to accelerate this ecosystem to the next level?
I can tell you one thing, Anurag, that this government is doing a fantastic job on supporting startups. I am part of the Startup Council, National Council, which is led by Honorable Piyush Goyalji. And let me tell you, in every meeting, we go through about 15, 20 ideas which government is trying to support, including what you said, domestic funding. How can the domestic funding happen? And we should have that in addition to the international funding and the cost of funding, and how we can support the entrepreneurs by right kind of systems, processes, so that they really are able to scale up, how we can mentor them, how we can give them more and more technology independence so that they can utilize whatever technologies, whether it's AI, machine learning, blockchain, robots, drones, whatever technology they would like to use, we would like to help them with that. So government already, let me tell you, through the Startup Council, and about 25 startup entrepreneurs are part of this council also. So they are also giving fantastic ideas. So I see a fantastic responsiveness and so much change to old laws and regulations is happening. Because, you know, India still has so many old regulations which need to be renovated, which need to be revitalized, and government is doing it fast. And I feel that government is listening. So all our entrepreneurs should go to the Startup Council and share their good ideas, and I can assure them that government will act on it.
Thank you so much. My last question, you went to FMS, then you went to University of Michigan, then you went to Wharton, which was an AMP, right, in strategy. You built companies along with the founders. I mean, Airtel, look at the scale. And as you said, it's an institution now. It's no longer a company. And it's grown despite regulatory challenges, change of goalposts, and so on. I'll not get into those. Then your role at SoftBank, which is again a venerable institution. Again, I won't call it just a fund. You're very well known in the Indian business ecosystem, in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. You're known globally. You went to Africa and did things in Africa. You've seen a lot, done a lot. Is there a bucket list that Manoj Kohli has? What do we expect from Manoj Kohli in the next 5 years?
So generally, Anurag, I make plan for a decade. So my plan for next decade is very clear. I will support more and more young entrepreneurs to great success. And my specialty, my own expertise is in scaling up businesses from ground zero up to global scale. And I have a dream that hundreds and hundreds of Indian entrepreneurs should scale up their businesses to global scale. And that is the biggest victory. And that is the biggest gratification personally, biggest victory for the nation and biggest personal gratification for me. So that when I hit my half a century of professional experience, I should have supported and enabled and mentored many more young entrepreneurs to global success.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kohli. Give Mr. Kohli a big round of applause. I'm sure over the next 10 years, I know we're not going to talk about SoftBank investments or the stock market or valuations, but I know OYO is preparing for an IPO, so on and so forth. And I really personally have a relationship with Ritesh, and I really wish him well. I know almost all your portfolio company founders, almost all, I can't say all. So really good luck to you. I can only say the valuations 2 years back had become more realistic with the success of the Nykas and the Paytms, in spite of whatever on the first day the stock may have come down. I think the only other, I think I'll say that the Indian startup founders have to value their companies right size. Sometimes they overvalue because they don't understand what's happening in the other. And I would say the last thing I'd say, you're much more experienced, though I have much less hair than you. Hair and wisdom have nothing to do with each, whether the lack of it or having it. But I can say the only other thing, and I'm an angel investor in a fairly sizable number of companies, and hopefully some of those companies will make a big mark, become unicorns, at least make an impact and give a good return to its shareholders, is that they don't value mentorship. We're talking on Guru Purnima. They value money. They don't value mentorship. They don't value the fact that someone can open their customers' doors. Money is the least important thing. Most important thing is to be able to help you scale up. So I would only say that I hope on this day of Gurpurab, we have a whole day program of content, knowledge, and leaders like you guiding. I hope they value money. We must respect Goddess Lakshmi, but we should also value Goddess Saraswati, which is represented by the mentors and their knowledge and their experiences and their Rolodexes. I think to me, if I were to raise $100 million for my next level of growth, I would value someone who can add value beyond money. I mean, money is a given. Yes. I think that's the only comment I have. That's changing. Some people do value both, and there has to be a balance. So that's the only comment I would make, and let you go. Please give Mr. Manoj Kohli a bigger round of applause than you gave in the morning. A bigger clapping is very good for heart muscle.